Hello. I am actually starting an Instagram Live on time for the first time. I'm going to give folks a moment to join. I am super excited to introduce you all tonight to someone. This is like a second word crush for me. If you happened to join my conversation a few weeks ago with Maggie Smith, the poet, you now know that I'm someone who hears or reads words from other people and just kind of instantly falls in love. And so I'm going to introduce you to my newest word crush right now. Let's see if we got her. Yay!
Hi, how are
Hello.
you?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm great. Good to see you, Marissa.
This is so nice. I see your face and I hear your voice and I want to close my eyes and take some deep breaths and I just feel better about life and the world.
That
So I'm
makes me
so
so
happy to
good.
have you here.
I'm happy to be here. Great to see you.
Yay, this is so great. Okay, so let me tell everyone a little bit about you, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity to just share more about yourself. So here's the thing that I really love and respect and appreciate about Dr. Chelsea Jackson Roberts. First of all, you don't often find someone with a PhD in a yoga studio. So I'm excited to have her tell you about all of that. But the thing that really has drawn me to her work and her words is that she focuses a lot on accessibility. I have said in the past that it's really important to me in the work that I have a chance to do around grief that we ensure that the things that we know help to facilitate healing after loss, after traumatic events, do not become privileges. Healing needs to be something that is accessible to everyone. And so, so often I have found myself doing my Peloton yoga class or one of Chelsea's meditations, and I feel so drawn to everything that she's saying because it feels like you and your work and how you live is just really aligned with that mission of making sure that these types of tools and resources are accessible to everyone. And so with that, I'm gonna turn it over to you, Chelsea.
So good to meet you, see you, talk with you. I'm happy to hear that the work of yoga, in general is just spreading in a way that reminds us that it's not just about the yoga postures, but yoga, is a way for us to practice our humanity, like as simple as that. And I think that it offers a nice framework, a nice toolbox for us to navigate the world. And for me, all of the different feelings come along with life. And, the title of your conversations about grief, that is a part of life in many ways. And so if I could do anything, to be able to support folks through all aspects of life, it's quite an honor that it is reaching folks and reminding us that we're worthy to explore all the parts of us and all of the feelings that we experience. So, yes.
I love it. I love it. Now, I have to say, I've been doing yoga on and off. Gosh, I am about to feel old, but probably for about 20 years now.
Yeah.
Started in college, and
Yeah.
you are my first Black yoga instructor. And that is another thing that has really spoken to me.
hmm
I am used to moving in spaces that are either frankly diverse or mostly white. So it's not
hmm
something that has necessarily bothered me, but
hmm
I have noticed that I personally feel different having you as a teacher. And so, like, tell me a little bit about how you came to this yoga space and talk talk a little bit about your programs that focus on representation, that are separate from your Peloton work.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started practicing. I always tell the story that it was very I saw it as this physical practice. I was quite young, in my early 20s, right after graduating from Spelman College. Shout out to Spelman College. And I just remember feeling I'm originally from Dayton, will represent Dayton. And I had a hard time with that transition from being there for so long with my family. And I felt myself becoming very disconnected from my body in so many different ways. And so I was just like, I heard about this thing called yoga. I picked up a book. I remember I always shout out a teacher whose book I picked up. It was Rodney Yee. I remember looking through the pages and saying, my body will never do this. So, but it made me even more intrigued. And so that's what I saw. That's what attracted me to the practice in general. But it was later on, after practicing for about 4 years, later on, as we both know, one of my best friends was tragically murdered. And that was the first time that I had ever experienced grief at that level, so close, so intimately, so abruptly, so tragically, all of those things. And anybody who knows our friend, Misty Carter, they know that she was someone who was just so full of life. And I just remember being in my early 20s and imagining what my future was going to be with her, beside her, and our other friends. And it just happened. And I remember feeling that moment of complete disconnect and having this opportunity to choose whether I was going to be so afraid of what I was experiencing and feeling emotionally because I couldn't explain it. I didn't really pursue any resources to figure it out. And by resources, I mean like therapy. Like there were things that I just didn't do. But there was this practice that I had been doing called yoga that when I knew in my physical body, I was going for this workout. But I remember these moments where it was just like, I feel whole. I feel worthy to figure this out. I feel, connected to myself. And so it was later that my yoga practice ended up being that tool that supported me through that grieving process of losing someone so abruptly. And I never turned back. And that's where I went deeper. I looked into meditation. I was a school teacher later on. And, I started to see the connections that my own process of grieving and trauma and all of that, how it was also in my students. Like my students who
Yeah.
were third graders, 8 and 9 year olds, they were reflections of me. Like I was working in Atlanta public schools. I was in a neighborhood similar to the one in the area that I grew up in, Dayton, Ohio, predominantly African American, all the things. And it was just like, well, what if I tried the breathing exercises and the opportunities to move our bodies because it's making me feel better through this process? What if I tried it with them? And so, Marissa, that's when
Oh
it
man.
just opened up. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, I mean, I am very sorry about Misty. I learned of her story and your story just through doing some background for our conversation. And, I obviously I know loss,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think there's anything that can really classify anyone as a grief expert because it's just all so hard and so
Mm-hmm.
different. And while there are, commonalities to the grief experience for all of us, it lands differently with everyone. And so
Right.
as much as I can imagine some of what you went through, I know that I can't
Mm-hmm.
imagine
Right. Right.
what you went through. But I really appreciate you, being open about it and sharing it because, the one thing that I've learned in the 13 years since my mom died is that
Mm-hmm.
the more we talk about and normalize these things that are so heavy and so challenging and
Yep.
traumatizing and like almost impossible to talk about, the
Mm-hmm.
easier it becomes to address them and, to heal and to figure out how to live with them.
Yep.
Because I'm sure, it was the 13th anniversary of my mom's death was Sunday.
Mm.
And I have grown and changed a lot in that time.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking doing one of your meditations. I couldn't have imagined the life that I have now, when I was a 24, like it's not even something that I could have conceived of. And now
Mm-hmm.
I see where I am, but I still absolutely carry my grief with me. At this point, I've
Yep.
decided it is a lived experience. It's not something that just surrounds the immediate aftermath of a loss. It is something that continues to show up in different ways. I think forever. I'm only 13 years out, so I don't know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, that's kind of what I have to assume, and it's hard. But I will tell you, your work absolutely helped carry me through this last year. Um, a lot of folks may already know this, but when the pandemic hit, I was recovering from a pregnancy loss, which
Mm.
obviously brought up a lot of the, my mom isn't around grief all over again. And then George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
And then we actually lost one of my cousins to COVID. And it was just too much. And so
Yeah.
I had to write my way through it, which has worked out fairly well. But I also had to figure out, like what was I going to do for myself? And the yoga and the meditation and the exercise resources that you all offer have just been an absolute game changer. So thank you. Thank you for
I'm
that.
so happy to hear that.
And I know a lot of folks who are watching are carrying grief in different forms right now. It feels like a more optimistic time, but the pandemic is not over. There are over 500,000 Americans whose lives have been lost, which means there are millions of people who are figuring out how to live with grief for the very first time. And so I would just love to hear from you, like how are you coping with this time? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the things that are getting you through? Obviously it's the yoga and the meditation, but what else are you doing that is helping that might help someone else?
Mm-hmm. One, talking with my husband to our niece and nephew who are 7 and 10 years old, and knowing and seeing that right now this is their childhood and this is what they're experiencing in this moment. And depended upon whenever you were born, you are going to experience life in a way. When I always reference my grandmother who just turned 96 years old.
Nice.
And, I think about, and she was born in Nashville, Tennessee. I think about what she experienced as a child. So I think about what I experienced in the 80s, 90s, And so for me, I have to look to the hope of the future and the visions of life has to continue in so many different ways, but it's being present that allows me really, and the tools that help me be present are being present for my niece and nephew when they, are calling on FaceTime and we're sitting there, we're being present with them. And that's what brings me hope in life. And so, yeah, looking towards the future is helping me. Of course, my yoga practice helps me to be present, and really being as simple as taking a moment to just, I'm in New York, and when the sun is out, even though it's cold here, just allowing myself to step outside and take a deep breath and really acknowledging life as a miracle each day, like that we
Yeah.
woke up. And that's often what I'm teaching to when I teach on the Peloton platform. Like I'm right there with you. Like I am practicing with you. I am remembering what my teachers taught me. That's what gives me hope. Hearing how, my teacher, one of my beloved teachers, Swami Jayadevi out in Atlanta, the work of her and her teacher, my teacher, they sat with people who were moving through transitioning, like dying,
Yeah.
whether it was from AIDS, whether it was from cancer, but it was through that service of the heart, which is what the core of yoga is to me. It's service, it is connection, it is seeing the humanity in ourselves, what James Baldwin I often reference of acknowledging our own suffering so that you can acknowledge and say, I may not have experienced the same process or experience as you, but my empathy for you is here because I'm acknowledging that I can suffer, you can suffer, we can suffer. That's a part of life. And it's acknowledging that that's going to allow us to open to love in so many different ways. So that's what keeps me coping with this. And it's certainly grounded and rooted in my family, my partner, my future, my students who are now in their 20s. Like, wow, like all of that. It's just all of that that reminds me that this is life and I want to acknowledge the fullness of it.
No, I mean that is beautiful. It is really, really hard though to sit with people who are suffering. And
Mm-hmm.
it's one thing to say that you are acknowledging someone else's suffering or someone else's pain. It's another thing to do the kind of work that you were talking about where people are literally helping people transition from this life into the next. Like that is really hard. And I struggle mightily when it comes to, even though I know that oftentimes it's the best thing you can do for someone, I have a really hard time just being a witness
Mm-hmm.
to the terrible things that happen to people. Like, I am a fixer. I am a let's make a to-do list and like get it done. We can solve anything kind of person. But the life stuff that is really deep and hard it is not meant to be solved. Like, you're right. It's meant to
Absolutely.
be witnessed.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm still learning that. I'm still learning that in partnership and relationship with my husband, like just still learning that. I too like that feeling like you got to fix something, and
Yeah.
perhaps maybe it's just taking a breath with that person. And for me, that wanting to fix it is not wanting to feel the sadness that maybe
Yeah.
that person just wants me to sit with them and feel with them instead of me trying to make it go away. And that's what yoga and meditation helps me to practice. It helps me to say, you know what? I really don't want to get on the mat right now, but let me try. Let me do it. I'm finding all the reasons why I should not, but let me do it. And then by the end of Shavasana, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was such a great idea, And so that's what has led me to being, practicing for decades. It's just every day, even if I miss a day, I remember that that practice is there for me to remind me to be present for myself so I can be present for others.
No, that's so true. That's so true. So two things. One, I did one of your restorative yoga classes on my mom's birthday a couple weeks ago. And
Nice.
I was in this place where I was just feeling heavier and sadder and just, more in my grief and in my feelings than I was expecting after, 13 years. And I was just resistant to everything. And finally, I thought to myself, okay, you gotta get moving. Like, you have to do something. And that was just the right something for me. So I just want to say thank you for that. It was
Oh,
a
I'm so
great
happy.
comfort.
I'm so
um,
glad.
it was really lovely. And then I want to go back to your nieces and nephews.
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking recently about this concept of stealing joy. When you are feeling shitty for whatever reason, grief, bad day at virtual work, your kids are driving you crazy, whatever, you don't have to diminish those feelings. Those feelings are real. They have to be acknowledged. You have to figure out how to either work through them or live with them. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that joy has to be completely absent from the situation. And so this weekend, we were actually able to safely gather with some family for the anniversary of my mom's death. And I just attached myself to a little 4-year-old niece. And she's hilarious. She's got a lot of energy. She's got a big personality. Everything is unicorns and rainbows. And I look back at the pictures from the weekend and I'm like, oh, even though it was so sad and so hard feeling this absence of my mom, it was still full of joy because I like
Yes.
took little bits of joy from this child.
Yes.
So that's one of my new things for everyone. Just like steal joy. If you're not feeling it and you want to feel just a little bit of something positive, find somebody else who's got something good to share.
Yes. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so I want to get your thoughts on something that you said. So this is, I'm going to read this because this is the thing that I heard from Chelsea that led to my word crush on her. I mean, I was already thinking she was amazing and brilliant and enjoyed her classes, but there's always this point where I hear something or I read something that someone has come up with that I just think is brilliant and needs to be shared with more people. So I'm going to share what she shared in a year of yes meditation, since we're talking about joy. She said, for me, a way to open to joy and peace is to be honest about what it is that I'm carrying. And I loved that because I talk about, excuse me, joy in the context of grief a lot, because if you're going to have to learn how to live with grief, then you also need to figure out all of the different ways that you can invite joy into your life as well. And I get frustrated sometimes because I feel like people often describe resilience in this way that is, somebody gave you lemons and you made lemonade, and it's just a little bit too like light and cheerful and not realistic for me. And I just thought that this piece about acknowledging what it is that you're carrying as a part of how you can still experience joy was really important. So I wanted to give you a chance to talk about that, and also if there's anything that you're carrying that you want to share with us, give you a chance to do that.
Yeah, so as far as what you, the first question you asked about, carrying, I think that it's important, again, to acknowledge the fullness of what we're experiencing. When I think about the obstacles that I've experienced in my body as being a Black woman, as I navigate, from yoga to academia, like whatever it is, that I have to acknowledge the fullness of what the experience is and the historical context. I got to acknowledge, what came before me. I have to give myself an opportunity to give myself forgiveness, permission for whatever it is, because otherwise I'm going to blame myself for whatever that obstacle may be. But if I look at the fullness of the experience, then it allows me to be grounded in the reality, of like a lot of different obstacles were created before I even got here. So why blame myself, in those
Yeah.
moments? So that's why it's important to acknowledge the fullness of the experience. So when I acknowledge what it is that I'm carrying, look, I've inherited, lineages of my family is from the South. And so my grandmother, who I just referred to, and my husband's grandmother, who is going to be 100 in August, they've experienced quite a lot, and we inherit these things. However, we also inherit that resilience. We inherit that joy. We inherit that love, because otherwise, had they been so overwhelmed that they were defeated, hopeless, and helpless, then we wouldn't be here. So it
Right.
relates to your first question of like, how do you keep going? I got to look towards the future. I got to look towards and be grounded in some type of hope, because it's in that moment that I lose hope or optimism, or just seeing that human beings, living beings, have endured for so
Yeah.
many, lifetimes, and I'm a part of that. So why not do the best that I can while I'm here to contribute to a place that, as Lokaha Samasta Suvitu Bhavantu says, may all living beings be happy, well, and free. And I want to contribute to that. And so, yeah, that is what I mean when I'm saying acknowledge all that you're carrying so that you can be free, essentially.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that. Okay, so first of all, I'm just catching up with some of the comments. There is someone, I lost it. Oh, I found it. Robin's Fly 3. I just want to acknowledge that she shared that she lost her son to childhood cancer in May.
Mm.
Very sorry, Robin. And she says one of her many struggles was sleeping, and thanks to your meditation, she can now fall asleep with ease. Like, is that, I
Oh,
mean,
I love
wow.
that. Yes.
I
Peace
didn't
to
want
you,
to skip
Robin.
over that.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
I'm happy to hear that. Yes,
Oh
rest is
man.
so important in the grieving process. We've got to rest.
It's important,
You
but so hard to
mentioned
access.
yes, you mentioned restorative yoga, and that's why I love offering that. And Robin, continue to restore. I often quote my teacher, my Jaya, you got to drink as you pour. So that's
Yes.
a part of the drink in that rest so that you can, continue this life, this full life.
So I want to talk about that drink so you can pour. So one of the things that I've struggled with, and I think to your earlier point, not I think, I know some of it is absolutely inherited. And I see there are a lot of women of color in the chat. I have always struggled with the idea that self care is something that is essential as opposed to something that is selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talk in particular to women of color, especially Black women, like it is mothers, it is this constant battle. And so I want to hear, sort of how you think about self care, because when I think about your work and like what it has been to me, like it has been my self care. It's been the way that I reset, the way that I fill myself up. Like I've used your meditations to help me transition from crazy intense workday where I'm dealing with anti-racism stuff and grief, before settling in for the night for some family time. Like I'm really bad at it though, and I see a lot of others are agreeing. So tell me how you think about it. Tell me how we can be better at taking care of ourselves.
Yeah, again, I always connect things to either the past or the future in order for me to be present. And we were just talking about the future. Now I got to go to the past again. And I have to acknowledge what my granny sacrificed in order for me to
Yeah.
be able to do exactly what I'm doing right now. I got to acknowledge what her mother experienced, what my grandfather's great grandfathers experienced in order for me to be here right now. And they did not have the opportunity to rest. They did not legally did not
Yeah.
have the
Yeah. No, you're
opportunity
right.
to rest. And so I often say, how dare I not practice
Damn.
this thing called self-care? And however you see it, I am not one to pass judgment on people's levels of self-care. I'm still working on it. So it's just like you have to define that for yourself. And so just think of that each time, anytime that it's a challenge to find the time to be able to make time for yourself, you got to remember, how dare you not? You
How
have,
dare you not? Somebody
yeah.
write that down so I don't forget. That's a good one. Oh, damn. And here's the thing, this is so interesting to me, the way that you framed it. I think we probably have similar family situations. I have a grandfather who's 99 and a grandmother who's 97 who are still living. They're from Georgia. My
Mm-hmm.
grandmother will tell you all about going to school, 10 miles walking with no shoes on and picking cotton and all of the things that they've endured and experienced in terms of racism and even just frankly in terms of being on this earth for almost 100
Mm-hmm.
years always blows
Mm-hmm.
my mind. um, but I always think about how dare I not, in the context of like how dare I not take advantage of the next opportunity, how
Mm-hmm.
dare I not go for the next accomplishment, project, write the next article, etc. I've never thought about it in the context of like how dare I not, frankly take better care of myself, like that. Like
Yep.
you've just blown my mind, and I see some
Yeah.
Erica's mind is blown as well. Thank you.
My mom is in here too. I see
Oh,
her.
yeah.
Hi, mom.
Oh, that's so great. Oh my
Yes.
goodness.
But another thing, Marissa, I want to say that has helped me a lot is that connection to our roots and figuring out where it is that we're from in order to understand who we are right now. And it has been an honor to be able to have the resources. We just started, my husband and I just started with like an ancestry service, and
Oh
then we
wow.
went deeper and deeper, and just seeing the records, and just seeing what people experience during those times. Again, that is a quite humanizing and real way to connect. And I know that that is certainly an honor, and I don't take it for granted that we're able to see this, because I do think that it does offer, some insight. Again, when we were just talking about the full picture, to understand whenever those times that self-critic comes in and we're hard on ourselves for our circumstances or whatever we may be experiencing, of course taking ownership and acknowledging the parts that we experience and play, but also looking at the full picture. So it's so helpful to be able to
Yeah.
see yeah, those records and connections.
How dare you not? I'm gonna remember that
Hmm.
one. That's wow. That is powerful. Damn. Okay. I'm like still thinking about it. It just really stuck with me. Chelsea, you are such a healer. Oh, people just love you so much.
Well, I love y'all.
I'm so glad that other people love you as much as I do. I will tell you, when I posted that I was doing this, I definitely got a bunch of side texts and messages, whatever, being like, "Oh my God, you love Chelsea too?" I'm like, "Of course I love Chelsea." So again,
I
thank
am
you.
y'all. We are all, no matter, wherever we're from, the region, whatever generation we are. I'm just like, I see all of us just sitting in the same classroom together, giggling and learning and seeing and dreaming of a really beautiful future together. So
Oh my
yes.
God, I love
I'm
that.
y'all's friends too, and I love y'all.
Oh, fantastic. Tell me something that you feel like you have learned from having to figure out how to move through and live with the grief of losing your friend at such a young age.
Yeah, I've learned to be patient. Um,
Go on.
with other people by being patient with myself. I've learned compassion, um, and to hopefully practice just as much as I would with myself, practicing that compassion with other living beings. Um, I know that I'm not perfect by any means, and that's why I always say it's practice, not perfection.
Yes.
And that's what it's taught me. Like, that was something extremely challenging, out of nowhere, kind of like abrupt moment in time at an early age, that it's just like, what do you do? And so I had to see that experience as an opportunity to learn how to live and how to be present and how
Yes.
to be patient and how to love. And so, yeah,
Yes.
that's what I've learned.
Oh my God. I mean, how to live and how to be present. That's the one that I've been thinking on as I've kind of dug in deeper with this book that I'm working on.
Hmm.
It's a bear. But I did a lot of writing when my mom was sick and right before and right after she died. And I'm so grateful that I did that because memory is just a funny thing. And I think because of the place that I was in, when she was sick, when she was dying, I was not able to be as present as I would have
Hmm.
liked. Just, I was overwhelmed, I was depressed, I had horrible anxiety, I was 23, 24 years old. Like it was just not like I was not able to be as present as I would have wanted to be, even though I was often around. And looking back now, I think about the things that I miss the most about my mom. And
Hmm.
there's the obvious, you have life milestone moments. And of course, I'm sure you were thinking about Misty, and I'm thinking about my mom when I got married, or different big jobs or whatever.
Yep.
But the things that I miss the most, and I'm wondering if this is true for you as well, are just like these little things that are connected to your individual person that I think you miss when you're not present. My mom
Mm-hmm.
used to mispronounce a handful of words, like the way she would sway in church, like a little bit off beat. Like there are just these like very little things that I'm like, I would do anything to have that back.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, the presence is it's just so important.
Yeah, and that's what the breath for me
Yeah,
teaches me to just, when I want to cherish those moments. Like if this 2020, 2021 wasn't a testament to, you know, enjoy every moment and be present. Like I
yeah,
was the person who went home 4 or 5 times a year, and it's been now over a year since I've been home. And so, yeah, it does make you now from this point on say,
yeah,
okay, let me learn from this, and going forward I'm going to practice being present,
yeah.
even more. And so that's what I take from it, and that's all I got. That's all I got. I'm still learning too.
No, it really is a practice. It's just so easy to not pay attention, and to get
Mhm.
caught up with whatever is in our head, whatever we're worrying about, whatever the next like work thing is. But yeah, it's really important. Do you have any on like this topic of being present? Do you have any like books or resources or things that you have accessed that might be helpful for folks who are like
Mhm.
trying to, practice being more present?
Yeah, I always love to shout out my friends and teachers who are my friends and teachers because they are my teachers and friends. And that is Octavia Rahim, her book Gather, a great book and, reflective. Tracy Stanley, one of my beloved teachers who teaches me about yoga nidra and the art of rest and deep relaxation. These are the teachers, Dr. Gail Parker. Like, look these people up. These are the tool kits that I use daily
Yes.
in so many different ways, whether it's listening to, you know, myself breathe out on like I was saying, going outside with the sun, taking a deep breath, and or reading a passage, like whatever it is. Yeah, those are my picks.
I love that. I love that. That is fantastic. Is there anything that you would advise folks to do if they are thinking about, starting a meditation or yoga practice? Obviously, I'll be the one to tell them to get on the Peloton app. It is affordable. It is fun. I am obsessed. I am
Yes.
officially cult of Peloton. So
And
I'll be the
Aditi just
Peloton
came on
sis.
here. I was going to say Aditi's on here. Hey, Aditi. And
Yes.
that's what I was going to say. Come and check us out, seriously, at Peloton. And I say that because we have a class act of teachers, quite, diverse in what it is that we offer. And it's just like, I think that people don't know that you don't have to have a bike to give
Exactly.
Peloton a try and experience yoga with us, as well as other different modalities, strength, Pilates, like different things. So what I would recommend is to give it a try. It's free for 30 days. I'm such a commercial right now. Free for
No,
30 days,
I
y'all.
offered to do it for you. I am officially in the cult. Everyone who knows me, who's been
Yes.
around me, knows that like I am all in. I am literally I'm gonna show this. I am that wife where, there was the commercial where the wife got the bike for Christmas and there was some criticism, whatever. I am that woman who, we're like, should we try this out? And he's like, yeah, for Christmas.
Yes.
I got it right before Christmas last year, and I'm in love. I'm in love.
Yeah. Yeah, because
So,
it's something to being able to practice live, because I'm showing up, experiencing
yeah.
life the same day y'all are. And it's just like, you're going to get that in a practice, and we're going to work it out together. And so, yeah, definitely check us out. And That's what I have to offer.
It is fantastic. I have sold a number of bikes as well as app subscriptions. So I don't know if there are Peloton ambassadors, but if there are, sign me up. I'm available. I just got my butt kicked yesterday in a total body strength workout by one of the guys. Like, yeah, you guys are intense. It is a lot of everything, and it is amazing. So on that note, I am going to let you go now that we've had our chance to advertise Peloton. This was wonderful. And
Thank
I
you.
promise to everyone who is watching and listening, I will go through and pull out the books that Chelsea mentioned and be sure to include them over on my page. And how dare you not? That that is the parting quote for our conversation this evening. How
Mm.
dare you not? Take that into the rest of your week, y'all.
Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you so much, Chelsea.
Thanks,
I'm so
y'all, for
I'm so
tuning
thank
in.
so thankful. Really
So
appreciate
am
it.
I. All
Bye
right, take
everyone.
care.